yeah, you ready? You got it? Okay, cool. So we start with the piece just laid on top of the bat. And at this point, I like to have a shape that is rounded at the base, avoids air pockets on the bottom, and also something I can handle easily. So here, elbow down on your leg, lift and down. It should be a little bit better, but if is off, nothing bad about scooching it. Also, you can definitely is an advantage to start with something that is already somewhere centered. So even tapping it a little bit into position, even more if you're working with a lot of clay. So once we get to this point, I like to add a little bit of water and get into full speed. I thinking about this one line, elbow, wrist, center of the clay, and make sure that my elbow is stuck in. This way all I have to do is leaning forward, and if I want to, I can support this motion with my other hand, make sure everything is wet, and I'm going to generate a bit of a clamp. I want to make sure that the center of my clay is in the middle of the clamp. So again, elbow to wrist, to middle, to fingers. Everything has to stay in the same line. And then it's kind of pretty easy to bring the clay up. Just hold coning the clay up. Sometimes I use my thumb here to help me, mostly if I have a lot of clay to cone up, but it's not necessary. As far as you can keep the alignment, you're okay. So note on the behavior of the clay. The clay can manage quite a change in direction. As far as you slowly let go of it, the clay will get back into alignment. But if apply the same exact push and let go quickly, then the clay throws itself off. Kind of same thing when approaching it quickly. So we're going to try always to approach the clay slowly and let go of it very slowly. So now for pushing down the clay, we usually don't do it this way. That generates usually kind of, I can actually show it. If I just push down, the clay start getting off center, start getting a whole lot of friction, and I get a bit of a mushroom head there. So instead, I suggest usually to bend the wrist, thinking about 20-degree angle, aiming at the center of the bat. So not this center, all the way down, and this way the clay will come down, and I'm still applying pressure, not only pretty much this entire area at this point. Once you get to this, adding a little bit of water again. One move that works very well is to actually, again, thinking of the same alignment, we don't lose that alignment. Grabbing your thumb, leaning down, and at the same time that I'm applying good amount of pressure from the side, by leaning down again, we're using upper body instead of muscles, right? You don't want to really use too much of the arm muscle. We just use our weight to come in and bringing the clay together. I'm often, I have the question, how do I bring the clay that is accumulating here? So actually, let me bring some clay back down there so I can demonstrate. So if you have this like flare up, right? All you have to do is to think about the direction of your hand. If I do this movement with a scooch up a little bit, then the clay just comes back up. If you feel a little bump of friction, add a little bit of water, realign yourself. And this one is the time that you really need to engage your core and breathe, like a nice rhythmic breath. Like to use breathing to control the stability and steadiness of your arms. So you can check at this point if your work is in okay shape. You have a little bit of a bump at the bottom. So if that happens, you can always even just use a sponge, grab the clay, bringing it up a little, and bringing it, pushing it back down, and that mitigate that little roughness at the bottom of the clay. Or you can just stay a little bit more with it. That works too. Either way. So once you don't have any more movement, you can actually put your thumbs together and go straight in. Now this is one way to do it here. We can start talking about alternative. One other way is to actually just push the thumbs in, so it's easier to get in with a single finger. If the clay is a little bit hard, which I suggest not to use anyway, but if it is and you really want to throw with it, this can be an easier way to get into quickly in the hole. So we want to try to keep about, I would say somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch from the base. I don't like to use so much the pin, but I got an idea of like the length of the fingers, and right now I'm about 1/2 inch. So I make a little T, measure here, measure there, and we are within the margin that are acceptable. So here I like to open the donut if you want. There is a couple of ways. You could, as far as you move back steadily, everything works. So fingers on top, and just pull them towards you. That's one way to go about it. Try not to bring the fingers up, to move as parallel to your back without coming up. No, it's tempting. It's good to have at least a thumb on the back to do a teeny bit of compression. My favorite technique is actually to combine the next two moves, which is squishing the clay. I make another clamp, right? Active fingers, the tip of the fingers are bent, and I just kind of pulling the clay towards my wrist, essentially. But at the same time, I use this part to compress it. So right here, we're starting to get elevation. This is the time to do the compression. Compressions are made by using the midi part of the fingers. You're going to start with, if you use two fingers, I guess the middle fingers will be in the middle of the base right there, and then you can move it outward and then back to the middle. It's a radial movement. We don't go all around, just from the center out and then back towards the center. Compression are important. They really force the clay into getting nice and strong. Now, making the volcano, which is kind of the next step. The goal of the next step is to actually modify the shape so it's a little bit as a truncated cone. So the top is going to be smaller than the base. But the reason why we do that is to fight centrifugal force. Now, the goal though is not only that, it's also to make sure that we have a consistent wall thickness. I don't mind if it's 1/2 inch or if it's a 3/4 inch. We really don't need to make much of a change that way. It's mostly, so one way to do it is actually from the same position I had before, just push inward as you're coming up a bit. So that's kind of a quick way to do it. But if this doesn't come natural, the other way to do it is to actually grab your thumb and using this hand as a tool, essentially. Very often we dedicate a different role to the hands still my elbow has to be down. I need something to triangulate here, right? So I'm going to put my elbow on the leg and then come up, controlling my thumb as if it was a tool. Again, I'm not really looking for elevation, even though I do get a little bit here. It's not the goal of this. Now, once we get to this point, we can start talking about pulling. I'm going to help myself by creating a bit of a groove at the base and also a bit of a groove on the inside. As you can see, I'm generating this little mound, and I'm doing it by pressing still within the same level of the base. So here at this point there are a bunch of options. I do call it butterfly to crocodile. The butterfly component is that the thumbs have to be interlaced. The crocodile is the fact that the fingers, and actually kind of the crocodiles like one tooth that sticks out. But the ideal is to have fingers to fingers, so middle fingers to middle fingers, ring to ring, and pinky to pinky. So that's one way to go about it. And then coming up that way. And as you can see, actually I have to stop for a second, add a little bit of water, and perhaps I should slow down the wheel a little bit. So coming up. So that's one way. And as you can see, that little bump keeps on coming up with me. That's what I'm carrying up. And now I can bring the fingers at the same height, taking my time because the rim hides a lot of clay. Get into here and then slowly parting the fingers. So that can be a decent first pull. Now I'm going to show a different way to go about it. So to demonstrate that really there's whichever way works for you is mostly about absorbing the principle, and then the way you get there, it's really kind of up to you. But I can do it by using this part of my hand. And same thing though, I don't want to let go of the bump. I want that bump to move up with me, and that will be my second pull here. Now, one very important note is to do not change the distance between your fingers. Because if you do that,